Hello, Facebook. Glad you joined us tonight. I see Nancy Baker. How you feeling, Nancy? Sorry about your accident yesterday. Bobby Dunbar, Daniel Hill, Linda Gregory, Annie Nelson Connor. Glad you're all joining in. Got Sister Frances here with me tonight and her accordion, and we're going to have a fun time. David and Kevin are off relaxing somewhere, and me and Sister Frances are going to take care of the kingdom tonight, along with Brother Tilly up in the booth is handling all the technical things, and Sister Art all the way from Cleveland here with Sister Frances, and she's our audience of one tonight. And Donna Van Hook, good to see you here. Good to have you. Hope Dunbar Massey, I think I know her. Good to see you, baby. Giving us a few more minutes for a few more y'all to get on if you want to, and then we're going to take off. Hello, Carol Stevens. Your son got home okay, but he's too tired to come. Hello, Glenn Dick. Looks like I've got a pretty good crowd here. Sister Frances Carden Snyder. I have trouble when I'm putting your name in there. I want to stop at Carden because Carden is a special name in the state of Kentucky from your grandpa, Pappy Carden.
That's right.
As we was talking a while ago in our history book in 1987, he was called the Dean of Kentucky Ministers when he was here. Had the first camp meeting in Kentucky at Greenville, I believe. I believe your grandpa had that at Greenville. It's what I think our history gives him credit for. And then your dad, who was so kind to me, was then after your grandpa was gone, your dad was considered the Dean of Kentucky Ministers. And so I'm glad that you chose to show up tonight. We're turning 105 tomorrow. And Sister Frances has come by here to celebrate this landmark occasion with us. I just want to remind you before we get into the good stuff, I want to remind you that at 10:30 Sunday morning, now let's be good stuff too. Sister Frances is going to be with us at 10:30 Sunday morning. We're going to receive members into the church. Be prepared for that. It's going to be unique in our COVID situation, how we receive members in, but we're going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen.
Praise
and
the Lord.
Always glad when people want to be part of our church. And remind you about the opportunities. We have been in this abnormal season since the middle of March, and we looked at the situations early on, and Sister Frances, there were areas that we had to address, and one of the areas was the evangelists. You've evangelized, so you know, and your dad evangelized. They lost their livelihood. They absolutely, and some of the evangelists, one that I talk to quite often, he simply said, I'm not going to put pastors on the spot. He called them and said, we need to cancel. But it affected his livelihood.
Surely.
And so we've encouraged people to give to the evangelists, and they have done that. We've been able to send gifts out to the evangelists,
That's awesome.
and it has helped them. And then World Missions. Now, we don't always know about World Missions taking a hit, but they took a pretty good hit, and this is what I'm told too. So we're encouraging people to support World Missions, and we can help them. And also we have a great food pantry here in Somerset, God's Food Pantry. And they help people. They've got an awesome setup. Their director's been here with us and sit here, and we gave them the scenario here of everything that's going on, how they feed people. It's one of the best organized things that you've ever seen. And one unique thing stood out to me. She said when we were fixing food boxes, she said, I give a food box to a homeless person, and I saw them take stuff out of the box and set it back down. So then I realized they can't handle everything you can handle in a household. So she set up a unique area for homeless people, which we have a growing homeless population, as I'm sure is everywhere.
Yes.
I've seen it in the last 15 years ago. We were looking for homeless people to help, and we're not having to look now. They're here. They're here in this area. And I thought she'd done a neat thing in that. And we've been able to help them. We had a little boy in our church. He got $10 working for his neighbor, and he made a video and challenged us to help the food pantry, and it was really neat. So that was good. And then, of course, the Home for Children is kind of a pet project of mine. And you made a post the other day that I did not know, but it really touched me. Of course, Doc Malden's the son of this church too, and we decided to do the old penny march, and we set a big wash tub out here, and we're at $3,000 to give to the Home for Children. I'll be sending Dr. Malden a check here in a few weeks, but we're promoting that too. And those are things, there's other needs there's other needs. We have always tried to be careful to watch just for the need of our local people. We don't send our local people to any agency. If we can help them, we help them right here.
That's wonderful.
We've just started an in-and-out food box out here where you can put food in or take what you need out.
Wow.
And that's just a week old with us, and it's kind of unique, but it's been around here for a while. But it's just something that a lady in her church wanted to do through her business, and they made the boxes, and the boxes are very presentable. You see it right there when you come in. So that's what we're doing. And your ways to give. I'm not as good as this as Brother Bennett or even Brother Stevens was getting pretty good, but you can mail your tithe, your offering if you're not able to come to church. We're encouraging you to come to our in-house services, but if you're uncomfortable, if you're apprehensive, we understand. So if you still want to give, you can mail it to P.O. 731, Somerset, Kentucky 42502. We leave the doors open Tuesday through Saturday, 4 to 7, and you can come by, and we have a kiosk here, and we also have a strong box here that you can drop your tithe and offering in, and we also have what you can give on our website as well. So avail yourself of that opportunity. The work of the kingdom is still going on.
Amen.
And so and you have been so good to not only give, but to encourage us. So thank you for doing that. And we right now, our schedule is we're going to stay with the same schedule on Sunday morning. We're going live stream on Sunday night, Wednesday night. We will be shifting our Friday night live after the first of the month, and I'll share more with you probably next Wednesday night. But we ask you to continue to support us on live stream, and if you can come to the services, we want you to come. We ask all the pertinent COVID questions. We take your temperatures. We record this. We have our social distancing set up in the church here, and so far we've been able to accommodate everybody. So I encourage you to come and to be with us if you can. If not, we do not question your faith.
That's right.
We don't question your faith. But if you can't, also we have 99.1 in the parking lot on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. I don't think we do live stream on 99.1 on Friday night, but anyway, we have that, and you can sit up there and listen, and you can even, if you get real happy, you can toot your horn, and we know what you're talking about.
Right,
So that's our preliminaries. It's so good. I see a bunch more people coming in here. All right, I see Rebecca Dick, Angel Rose, Susan Wright. There's my nephew Sean Coffey, about 30-something miles away from here, and
Hi,
Lexi Calhoun, and all right, let me do this. This is from Sean. Praise report, Uncle Johnny. Brooklyn has no arthritis showing in her body and no inflammation of any kind. Now, this is his daughter that we thought at 3 years old had rheumatoid arthritis. It would have been a lifetime problem, okay? Her doctor has cut her meds in half. Thank you all for your prayers. God is good. Yes, he is, Sean. I love you, baby. I love you. Good to hear those reports. And good to hear those reports.
Yes.
And we're believing for Jody too, Sean. We're believing that. So Linda Strunk-Ridner. Good. I still want to call you Linda Strunk, but good to see you watching. And I'll get to visit these people. Forget to visit you. But here's a special guest tonight. Sister Frances Carden Snyder. And she is the daughter of a former pastor. And as I said, the dean of the ministers of Kentucky in this church. And before I ask her any questions about history, I want her to bless us with a song on the accordion right now. Can we do that?
I surely will.
And I might sing along. I don't know.
Something beautiful. Something good.
Yeah.
All my confusion, he understood. All I had to offer him was brokenness and strife, but he made something beautiful of my life. He is my everything.
Everything, yes.
He is my all. Christ is my everything, both great and small. He gave his life for me. Everything new. Oh, he is mother will do.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Praise the
That is what the
Lord.
psalmist said is sweeter than the honey and the honeycomb.
Amen. Amen.
Sister Francis, I said that we talked a few weeks ago. We were planning this. You are a link, one of the last links to the past
I
that
do
we have
believe.
here.
I do believe I probably am.
One of the last, and you were what, 10 years old when you
I
were?
was 10 years old when we moved here from Lexington, Kentucky. In fact, if I can give you a little bit of history on how we
Go ahead.
got here.
They want to hear you, not me.
2 years before we came here, my parents lost a little 2.5-year-old baby with cancer. They lived in Cumberland, Kentucky, and then they moved to Lexington. And back then, Brother Johnny, pastors never knew from one camp meeting till the other where they were, if they were going to stay at their church or they were going to be moved, because it was up to the overseer. So we never knew when we were going to move or if we were going to stay. We were in Lexington, been there 2 years, and Mother was expecting the baby that was born here. We call him Big Don. He was a 10-pounder when he was born, and he's still a big guy. And so we stayed home with Mother, and Dad came to camp meeting by himself, which was in July, I believe it, June or July. And of course, Don was born in October. So we got a call, Mother got a call from Dad of the last day of the camp meeting and said, "Hun, we're going to be moving, and we're going to be moving to Somerset, Kentucky." So when he got home, we started making plans. We moved here. I think the procedure during that era was the preachers went back to their home, got things in order, and got moved, and hopefully would be at their church by Labor Day weekend. And we usually were always late. Dad would sign us in to go to school, and we were always late because we didn't move to that place until after Labor Day. But we came to Somerset we got here in August, or Labor Day weekend, or somewhere in there. And then my brother Don was born in October. But what an experience that we had. My dad pastored a lot of churches. I didn't go to the same school over 2 years, and most of the time one. But I remember I went to the 5th and 6th grade here. My dad and the men of the church were building a basement, which I'm sure you're going to get into that later. Dad said that he bought us more shoes the 2 years that we lived here than any place we ever lived, because we walked to school and we lived on Cotter, and the school was over on, it was Parker Elementary.
Parker over on Bourne, yeah.
So we went down the
Down that
hill
big
by the
hill,
church,
yeah.
and it was, it seemed, if I can remember, it seemed like it was hard dirt and big rocks.
Yeah, probably.
And we wore out shoes walking back and forth to school. But we loved Somerset. And I think the last time I was here 5 years ago, I shared, actually when we moved into the parsonage, 146 Cotter
Yep.
Avenue, brick parsonage, we
Yeah.
thought we had moved into a mansion. Because Dad was a church planter most of the time. In fact, when we lived in Lexington before we moved here, he built rooms on the back of the church to make a living room and a bedroom off of the auditorium, but our headquarters were in the basement. We occupied the Sunday school rooms, and then the basement part was the church activities. So when we moved into the parsonage, we thought we would be rich. We'd be rich.
Well, you know, that parsonage was about 8 to 10 years old when you moved in. L.L. Hughes built that parsonage, and of course he was a noted brick mason
Yes.
and builder. He built him and his brother Alex, and I'm thinking John Jernigan maybe worked, I can't remember whether they built the tabernacle or not, or where I worked on the tabernacle, the old tabernacle that was built here, where we had camp meeting here. But when they just moved camp meeting to Lexington, I guess when you moved here, hadn't they?
Yes.
It had been moved.
But he called us from Lexington, the old tabernacle down the hill there. It was like a barn. It seemed like a barn. It was shavings.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so neat though. We loved it as kids. We loved it.
had upright logs drove in the ground. It was built with logs pushed
Yes.
down and then chinked, I believe, the way the paintings show.
But you're right, I do believe that was probably the last
Yeah.
time we had the camp meeting
Right,
here.
yeah, it was,
And then we went out on Richmond Road
yeah.
where,
It was in the transition. I just want to say here, if you want to pose a question, Sister Francis, if you'll just type it in here, I'm trying to keep up with that. I don't know if I can keep up with everybody watching here tonight. I see Stephanie Stevenson, Dave Bennett, Susan Wright, Gloria Gallon, Carlos was here, Rusty Woolen from a Newport Church, Jamie Foster, Lisa Tilley, Pauline Paget, Amy Tomlinson. I'll tell you what, they're picking up here and watching us. And just stay, if you've got a question, send in to Sister Francis. I want to go back before I forget this. Help me here. When they done the basement, of course, they had to hand dig it, didn't they?
yes.
It was dug by hand under the
Yes,
church.
because it was on a hill.
Yeah.
There was no
Oh, a
way a
steep
piece
hill,
of equipment could get it in there.
That's one of the steepest that's one of the steepest parts of Cotter Avenue going over into what we call the holler. And then the parsonage at Caddy Corner. You know, the parsonage is still a beautiful home today. It has been well maintained.
I'm going to take my friend that
It's-
brought
it
me here.
is-
We're
it
going
is
to go
beautiful.
look at it tomorrow, maybe have a picture made by it.
But and your dad was kind of always known for wherever he went, he always done something, didn't he? He always done something construction wise on the church. And
Always tried to improve.
yeah, and he did. That's true. And at that day, now if you go in that basement now, the ceiling is not very high. It's kind of constricted. But in that day, very few had anything like that,
No.
and it added a education. I don't know what your dad's education level was as an individual, but I've heard him preach.
Sixth.
And he really, I believe he believed in teaching as well as preaching the word. He believed in the teaching of the word.
He did,
because
and he taught himself.
yeah, had that instruction there. So he stayed here for 2 years. Then he would be a state overseer after that, wouldn't he? He
Yes.
would go and be a state overseer.
State overseer in 56, 56, 57, 58.
And then would come back to 4th Street and then build the great Loudon Avenue Church there in
Well,
Lexington.
he went from there from Colorado to Graham, Texas.
Graham, Texas.
And then from Graham, Texas, he came back to Louisville to a church that he had pastored before, and then the overseer sent him back to Lexington, where he then built the Loudon Avenue Church.
He there was a great impact because I had family in the church there. Elbert Dunbar.
Right.
Was my dad's first cousin. He was married to my mom's sister, and they were part of that church. From the Bernardery Church, you had Lauren Aaron, and you
Right.
had Brother Roy from down at
Right.
Russell Springs, so there's a big influence. But he impacted, he came along at a time when some people had left here for jobs.
Oh, yes.
And moved to Lexington, and Lexington was booming at that time.
Yeah.
And he tapped into those people. Man, he built a great church there.
Yes, he
And
did.
I'll tell you what, those people, I came in on the tail end of that, because I wasn't around the state level till I got into ministry really. But I came in on the tail end of that. But a lot of people could remember my family there, and everybody remembered Brother Carden, and his ministry is so unique. And he also, when I first started, he let me come and preach for him down at what was the Burnside Church. That's now Community Harvest. Now, I just starting, and it was. I'm glad. I don't think no tapes exist today, and I'm glad. I harm to be destroyed. But your dad could make you think that you were the greatest preacher in the world, and he would always find something good to say about you, and I remember I preached with my brother. He let me and my brother preach, and we didn't really know all the connection our families had together then, but our mom would tell us as time went on. She would tell us about that. But I know one man that he told him, he said, we need a church at Campbellsville. Let's go over and stay. Well, at Campbellsville, and we had a pretty good church there for a while. He would start it.
That's right.
And then he would turn it over to a young pastor. That's what he done in James. He turned over to Brother Wheaton, and my brother followed Brother Wheaton, 84 or 5. Now my brother's still there, and that's the way he done. He loved. It seemed like he loved
liked to help
mentoring young
get them
ministers.
started into the ministry.
And now I'll tell you this. This is confession. When your father came back to Russell Springs, and I know there was a time in there when he had the heart attack,
Yes.
and then God had healed him. But I think this was before, I don't know if this was before the healing or not, but I was just a young Christian, and I heard about Brother Cardinal Lotz, you know, and I heard him preach. He wouldn't wail that night, and he preached good, but I think I was expecting, you know, the heavens to come down, and he just wasn't preaching a lot then. Well, he come back down after he got back he went back to pastor. He took the campground church and merged it with the Burnside church and made a great church there. And he came down to do a fellowship meet down at the Jamestown church. And I'm telling you, I never heard such preaching in all my life. And it had been the same way with Everett Foster was a contemporary of his, and Everett Foster was my hero.
Yes.
Because he set me on his knee when I was little. That's all I remember, but he's my hero. And he came back, and when I got saved, and he preached, and he had been really sick. And I thought, well, I was expecting, you know, something more. And I don't mean to say it bad, the anticipation, because they were so great in my eyes. And then he came to revival, I preached, and the pastor prayed for him. Not me, the pastor prayed for him, and God healed him. He had been sick, and he come back. It was the last time he come home, long before he died. And they gave him the microphone to testify, and for 15 minutes he preached. And I'm talking about the heaven, like your dad is the heaven. And I thought, oh, now this is what I want to say. And I feel bad now because, you know, sometimes we build people up too much. But I realized that, hey, they were not feeling well. But then, man, when I caught them doing good, and it just blessed me. And I'm thankful. That generation is the reason I'm sitting here tonight.
Yes, yes.
That generation.
Well, Brother Johnny, I want to tell you, when I was 10, turned 11 and 12, about the church, the services that we had at Cotter Avenue. I don't remember what the crowd was when we moved, but the impact that I have now from it. On Sunday nights, we started church at 7. Dad opened the building at 6 on Sunday nights. And by the time church started, of course, there was no ACs or anything like that. They had the windows up. People were standing around the windows. All the little children, they brought them up and let them sit on the altar because there was no place for them. And there was no nursery, so the mothers kept their babies. And we would have camp meeting every Sunday night. The place would be packed, and I'm telling you, I've seen people just fall in the spirit. I've seen them run the aisles. I've seen them jump the pews. As a 10, 11, 12-year-old, I saw some moving of the Spirit of the Lord that I'll never forget. I was 10 years old when we moved there, and that's when I started playing the piano. But all the little girls my age were playing the piano, the Gurglers and Barbara Sadler and all of them. And that's where we learned it, playing during the altar service. It would go forever. And they couldn't hear us because they were screaming and crying and praising the Lord. And we were up there singing When the Saints Go Marching In and playing in the key of G, you know. And, wonderful. And I'm not surprised that Somerset Church of God is 105 years old. I am not surprised.
I've always been blessed. Church has always put a roof over my head, took care of me. There's times I worked a job and pastored. First church I done that. But the church has always took care of me. And I think I would have. But those people never had no guarantee of anything.
No.
You know, money was scarce. Poundings. I remember my mom and dad carrying poundings in.
That's right, for the pasture.
Yeah,
That's right.
And that was their tithe. They would tithe other garden and things.
That's
and
right.
tithe I can remember Brother Foster having us kill hogs. You know, and Dad tied the meat into him. You know, and things like that. And the sacrifice. And the one thing I try to teach here, or try to emphasize to the people, that not just in the church, but in America, we have lost the spirit of sacrifice.
I believe that.
Yeah, and there was something to that. They never thought of giving up something. They were giving up anything. They were serving the kingdom of God.
And it was just a normal, natural thing to do.
Yeah, that was just what they did. Somebody's asked for another song. Let's do another song, and I'll think of more stuff talking.
If the world from you withhold, of its silver and its gold. And you have to get along in meager fare. Just remember in his word.
Oh, yeah.
How he feeds the little bird.
Feeds everybody.
Oh, take your burdens to the Lord and leave it there. Oh, leave it there.
Yeah, leave it there.
Just leave it there. Take your burdens to the Lord and leave it there. Oh, if you trust and never doubt, he will surely bring you out. Oh, hallelujah. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. I like this verse. If your body suffers pain,
Yeah, come on.
and your health you can't regain, and your soul is almost sinking in despair,
Yeah.
my Jesus knows. He knows the pain you feel. He can save and he can heal. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Everybody out there, sing it with me now. Leave it there. Oh, leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. If you trust and never doubt, oh, he'll surely bring you out. Take your burden, oh, hallelujah, to the Lord and leave it there. Woo, hallelujah. I think we could have church
Yes.
here tonight, Brother
Yes,
Johnny.
yes. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. And wherever two or three are gathered together in my name.
Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah.
I think our history, and this is becoming a national problem, our history is so important. One man said that entities that survive and flourish over time, they have to grow up and they have to grow out, but they never lose what they had when they started. Mm-hmm. When I came here 24 years ago almost, when I received the vote, I couldn't sleep that night, and early in the morning sometime God spoke to me and said, "You're going to restore the glory of that old church." And I didn't understand what that meant. I thought, was it because it's the oldest continuing church? Is it because at one time it was probably the best known church in Kentucky in the whole Church of God? Everybody knew Cotter Avenue. Was it when it was the biggest church in the state, or when everything, Somerset was the center of the Church of God in the state? And I watched for years, and I couldn't figure it out. And I finally just kind of dropped it. And then 1 week before our 100th celebration, you were here.
Yes.
On a Sunday morning, we just all came together here in the altar, and a couple of guys just went shoulder to shoulder with me. And I realized the glory. The glory was the unity.
Yes.
How good and how pleasant it is for the brethren to dwell together in unity. Yes. And I seen that. And it just, and I thought, this is what, that's what they were. They were unified. They couldn't have survived. I mean, they put their, people done business with them, didn't like Pentecostals, so they lost business. Mm-hmm. Their kids got made fun of in the neighborhood. Some of their neighbors wouldn't speak to them as hard at school, but they had unity. And they built something that lasted. Yes. And I realized it's not how big, it's not even how renowned you are. It's the fact that you have unity. Because the people we minister to, I call it our little 9 acres here, but the people we minister to, they see our unity or they'll come in. That doesn't matter 100 miles from here, but what they see here is what brings them here. And our history, that was the history. This was the unity that we have. And I think, we have to study the bad. We had bad parts. We know that. I mean, you know the bad stories, well as the good stories. but we had a unity, and that unity caused us surviving. And that really becomes, I'm getting mixed up, it kind of becomes part of our history, or what our history is. And I think it's important that we know that your dad dug a basement and put stained glass windows in the church. It may not mean nothing to a lot of people, but I think it's important we know that.
It is.
I think it's important that people know the sacrifice, the hard work that people done to survive. And everything wasn't good. Everything wasn't perfect. But there was a sacrifice made, and our history is still rich.
Well, Brother Johnny, the congregation grew, and at that time they didn't think about selling and moving somewhere else.
No.
So they just worked on the church to make it meet their needs. So they needed a basement for children. There was all kinds of us kids.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a bunch of us, and it was in a location. And speaking of unity, it seemed like, if I can remember correctly, most of us lived around in that area. Old Sister Brown and her two little children from over across the tracks, they walked to church. Never be time when people would want to drive them home and they wanted to walk.
Sister Love's daughters would tell us about, walking to church in the rain with their mom and hung their coats up to dry. Hope they dried enough for when they walked back home if it's rained or something. And we talked about this one night when we talked about the history. And actually, I was told stories of people that got saved and they moved into the area. Because they wouldn't need parking even when they went to 163. They had 7 parking places, all they had. And they moved in the area where they could walk to church.
Yes.
And there was some great stories of faith. You mentioned Sister Brown. There were 2 Sister Browns, and they were both people of faith. And one of them wrote scriptures all over her house and painted scriptures on her house. And then Sister Brown, that lived just down there close to the parsonage, and that might not have been where she lived when you was here, but when she was dying, she made them promise not to put medication in her body. She would not take medication. Now you say, well, you take medicine? Yeah, I take medicine, but I honor her faith.
Yeah, that's right.
Honor the faith. And there's a faith in our history. There was a faith that trusted God in truth because they had to trust God. They didn't have the resources and things we have today, and maybe how good we've got it might not have been as good for us as we thought it was. And I'm looking at people just watching here, and
they're giving testimonies.
Here's one. I'm joining in with singing. There's people talking about Linda, Sister Frida Strunk, been a part of our church for 50-something years. Said her mom's been sick for several days. Her mom won't never tell you she's sick. She's one of these that don't bother nobody. But Linda, we'll be praying for your mother. And here's my friend Larry Collier. He said, I'm just joining in singing. I see Marlene's watching now. Amy Thompson said her grandmother, she calls her Granny Goldie Duncan.
Yes, sir.
Goldie was here with us
Sister
on the
Duncan.
100th, and she's gone to heaven.
She was here the last time I was here, because
so
her and mother were roommates at senior retreat.
Yeah, and she said she'd love to hear the stories and songs. And Marlene says, wonderful woman of God. Yes, you are. And Sister Linda Mills watching. She is new to our church, but I just want to tell you this story. She works with the Independent Missionary Group, and she goes out throughout the year and buys shirts. She goes to consignment shop and gets shirts that are in good shape, and she irons them, and she washes them, presses them, and folds them like you would to sell. And she sends them or takes them to a missionary convention in Central America, and all the pastors can get a shirt for it. And that's no big deal to me. I've got to throw shirts away here in a little while. Something my closet's full, but to them it is. So again, the spirit of sacrifice. It's just I see Crystal Roe Dalton watching there. Brother Ernest Dalton's daughter-in-law, and then Brother Linville passed away.
Right.
We lost Brother Linville 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago.
And I got to see him the last time I was here.
He was here, and it's the people here that love you and the legacy your dad left, and your mom. One of the highlights of my life is when you and your family asked me to be part of your mother's funeral.
Yes.
And I thought, when I stood there, I thought, why would they ask me and I stood there with the pastors and our state overseer.
That's right.
And
That
Sister-
didn't mean anything to me.
But it was so important to me that you or meant so much to me. I told Brother Bennett, he came with me, and he's just mentioned a while ago to say hello. He's on vacation in Gulf Shores.
I missed him. He's a good caregiver
Well, he
for the
did-
evangelists.
He had planned his vacation for he knew you was coming. So, but I told him, I said, I really don't know why they would choose me of all the people you could, but I was honored. And when
Well,
she
she loved you, and she loved the Dunbars, those
I
Dunbar
don't know, I
boys.
don't know if we said this live, but we went there on her prayer list, and everything, and my mom and her were prayer warriors, especially when they lived in Russell Springs there, and they were prayer, and those people were prayer warriors now.
That's right.
I never considered myself a prayer warrior, but no, they believed in prayer, and actually, what they wrought came through prayer. What God done came through prayer, and then your dad. I want to. This is part of it. He came back here after his health had been restored. His healing was a powerful story too. And
Yes.
your aunt's revival, and
Yes.
I heard him say himself. He said they prayed for me, and this is one thing I remember saying. And he said, I woke up. I sat and straddled the altar at the Russell Springs Church of God, and God had healed me. I also remember him telling us, he said he wouldn't go to a doctor for a long time, and he said people kept on aggravating me to go to the doctor, and he said, I went to the doctor, and I ain't been to nothing but doctors since then. He said. But he came here and done an amazing thing. He merged two churches.
Yes, he did.
Which is almost impossible. And I know everybody just about that was involved in that merger. And I think he probably was the only man could have done that.
And you know what, he told them that he had performed a ceremony he brought the two churches together as a marriage.
I didn't know about that, but that's neat
It's true.
because everybody that were from both churches spoke highly. I was talking to Brother Jeff Stringer just yesterday, and he was here. He does our yard work. He's doing our yard work, and of course he'll be here Sunday. But he said Brother Carden baptized him back in the early '80s there at the church, and another guy, I remember him saying it just made me feel so good to see Brother Carden pull up my driveway, and he had that effect on everywhere he went. He came in there to Russell Springs when they had what they call the district church.
Yes,
Then that's
yes.
where any of that retired, they expected him to go to the district church. And he went there, and he never made the pastor uncomfortable. Man,
No.
that's hard sometimes.
Yes, it is.
But because of where he had been and what all he had done. But wherever he was, and the work he done here, it may have been as great as any work, because it is hard. It is hard to bring two groups together.
Well, each group had their own clerk, had
Sure,
their own council, and their own individual things that they did in their churches. And they came together, Brother Johnny. It was just a God thing.
It is a God thing.
It was a God thing.
And it took the wisdom. He was known probably one word that almost everybody described him. He was a good preacher. He was a good friend. He was a good pastor. But wisdom was always brought into every part of the conversation that they talked about him. And then your mom.
She was an angel from heaven.
Yeah, and she never said a whole lot. But she was always there. First time I seen her, I was at MIP, and I believe she was, I can't remember when it was. She was on the organ. Maybe it's at camp meeting she was playing the organ or something. I don't know, but I remember seeing an organ at Loudon Avenue.
Loudon Avenue.
And maybe it's when she went back to after your dad died, and I'd seen her before
Yeah,
then. But
yeah.
they said she went right back, and she was right back in her
Yeah.
place there, and they were just wherever they went, they were a blessing.
And the wonderful thing about my mother is she never, wherever my dad felt like God was sending him, and I was telling my friend that came with me, they'd be in one parsonage that would be totally furnished, and the next place, and he'd sell the furniture they had from the one that they just left because they didn't have
Yeah.
anything. And then they'd leave that parsonage that was furnished and go to a place, and Dad would go get out and look for furniture. They'd have to furnish that parsonage, and never complained. In fact, I have the piano that he bought her 53 years ago, and she had a piano almost as long as I remember, but she didn't have just one, she had many, because the next place that we went either had a piano and there was not room for hers, or they had not a parsonage and it wasn't big enough to have a piano, so we'd have to sell it. And of course, she loved playing the piano. And so, but he told her, he said, Sister Carton, it is Lancaster, Ohio, is where he bought her last one. He said, I'm not getting rid of your pianos anymore. You're going to have this one till you go to heaven. So she did, and I've got it too.
Well, the reach of his ministry, and I think that's the greatest mark of ministry is its reach. A few years ago, I had a experience where I didn't know if I was going to make it, live or not, and I remember just thinking, does destiny die here? But I've come to learn that destiny doesn't die if we sow good seed. And the reach of his ministry, and I've got to tell this story. I've told it some, and you know the story probably won't tell. But when we bought this property here, we came to a place where money just quit coming in, and I had committed not to turn dirt on this church till we paid for the property. And money just stopped coming in for a variety of reasons. And a man, make a long story short, I was in a place, he'd sent word he wanted to see me, and I didn't approach him because I knew he was a man of means, and I don't generally do that, you know. But he saw me, he said, I want to talk to you, come back here to my office. And I went back. He pulled a check out of his desk, already made out. And he just walked in. He said, here's a check for $10,000 for your church. He said, 50 years ago, that's when your dad was here. He said his aunt went to this church and she asked the pastor to come and pray for this man's dad. He said, the pastor of that church drove out in the country and seen my dad when my dad was dying. Now, a lot of people don't remember stuff like that, but that man did. He said, I've had a good year, Brother Dunbar. Here's $10,000. And he handed me that check. And that actually broke the dam. We'd never had gifts hardly like that. And that broke the dam. And a week later, within 2 or 3 days, a lady called me and said, I just sold my business. I've got $5,000 or $10,000 for you. And kind of people just said the money's not going to come. You know, it's just dried up. And then a guy walked in the building for prayer on Monday night and handed me 10 $100 bills. He said, this is in honor of my dad. Don't tell my mom. His mom walked in church on Wednesday night, and I said, somebody gave $1,000 in honor of your husband, but I can't tell you who. And she says, I've got $5,000 in my purse my son in Ohio sent. And 3 days before I was supposed to renew the note, we walked in the bank and paid it. And I think about that often. I think about the reach.
That's right.
All the man done was drive out in the country and do what we do. That's what we do.
That's what we do.
And he drove out there, and it impacted him. Man, I never told his family till he had passed. And I was standing by his coffin. I told them the story. Precious people. And he done what we do. And he didn't think anything about it, and he never lived to see the day. But that thing stayed in somebody's mind, and the reach. And the reach of the small things we do.
That's right.
The reach of the small, I don't know how many people tell me, a lady came on Facebook the other day and said, your mom was with somebody at the hospital when my mom died, and she came down the hall and sat with us and prayed with us. And that was 40 years after this happened. And this woman said, I still remember that to this day. And the reach. And we talk about you connecting us to the past, but that reach, it comes forth. And I pray, Sister Francis, that I believe yours does, because I've seen so much out of you. Your reach is, I hope my reach is, I've just always said, I hope one person stands there, at least one, and says, I've done something for him. It's the reach.
Yeah.
It's the reach of our ministry, and your dad's and your mom's ministry reached 50 years into the future in the heart of one man. And what he done, you know, something breaks the dam loose.
Yeah.
And what he done, he broke the dam loose. Mm-hmm. And God it just started coming in. I mean, the whole attitude of people changed.
Yeah.
And it just started coming in. And we had to wrestle to borrow that money to buy this thing, because our church hadn't done that in years. And the last time they'd done a major project, that had to beg for money when they come down and pay the bills, and I just didn't cut out of that cloth. I can't do it. And I done said, I'll not beg. I'll go get somebody else to beg. I won't beg. But we never had to beg. We never had to take a special offering. I never missed a check. This church never missed a bill.
Praise the Lord.
In paying for this, paying for this.
Thank God.
And so God help. But the reach of men like that. And that built faith in our people. And all of a sudden, somebody outside of our church cares for us. And you tell the story, and I can't even tell the name, but I said, he visited the guy's dad. And the man remembered it. How many people can remember that? I can remember Bill Morgan, Lauren Aaron, and Michael Johnny Green, and I believe Alvin Stevens as the elders of the church come and laying hands on me and my dad, and we were sick one winter. I remember that.
Yeah.
The reach. I don't know where to go with the questions here. I mean, I don't know how long we've been going. Gary's in the shades at 45, but are we about there? Well, we got to have another song anyway. We got to have another song.
All right. Just in case the wonderful things we've been talking about, you may not get to make it here Sunday, and I won't be doing much, but this song just came to my heart. With all that's going on right now, there's still victory, and we can't get discouraged and we can't get downhearted. Amen. And this song will be just, I believe, the very song to bless you. When I'm tossed on life's sea and the waves threaten me and the storm clouds won't let the sun shine through, then a voice seems to say, child, there'll be a brighter day. Don't allow those clouds to hide sweet heaven's view, 'cause you've got one more valley, one more hill, maybe one more trial, one more tear, one more curve in life's road, maybe one more mile to go. Then you can lay down that heavy load when you get home. Don't let Satan see your tears. Learn to smile through your fears. Just hold your head up high and give the world a smile. We must be faithful all the way. It will be worth it all someday, 'cause it's all gonna be over after a while. Now come on everybody, sing with me. 'Cause you've got one more valley, one more hill, maybe one more trial, one more tear, one more curve in life's road, maybe one more mile to go. Then you can lay down your heavy load when you get home. We're gonna lay down our heavy load when we get home. Oh, hallelujah.
Brother Bennett said, before you start singing, he just said, sing another song. And I was going to ask you if he was talking to me or you, but he come again and clarified that he was talking to you. I just, sing that song came out of our Mountain Heritage. Wonder what they're doing in heaven today.
Yes. Wonder what
Sin
they're
and
doing.
sorrow all passed away. And I wondered what it's like up there when people like your mom and my mom and Brother Carden and all the saints of this church here, and I've got a rich heritage in the Bernard Ridge Church
Yes, you
there.
have.
And,
Yes, you have.
powerful, sent preachers out, and a lot of the daughters of that church married ministers, you know. I just thought about what a glorious time. It's got to be up there when another saint comes home, and with all the things that's going on in the world right now, all the situations that we're dealing with, won't it be wonderful?
It's going to be wonderful.
When we step out of here, I think the phrase I used, my mom, she traded time for eternity. And I'm ready to trade time for eternity, aren't you? It's going to be a wonderful
Yep.
wonderful time. I think you've been here tonight, Sister Francis. I'm sure that Brother Benny's going to call me after all and say, you talk too much, and you didn't let Sister Francis talk enough, so he'll probably want you to come back and do another live stream or something. But thank you for being here. I appreciate what your family done in ministry, the ministry of the Carden family for over 100 years now.
Yes.
There's a 100-year legacy in the Church of God. You're at least the third generation of Church of God ministers in your family, I know, and it covers the entire history almost of the Church of God, especially the state of Kentucky.
Right. My grandfather started the first church in Louisville, Kentucky in 1923.
Right. And we were, and what people don't realize, we weren't always a church. We're not really even an old denomination.
No.
But men like that went in, like you said, and they dug the churches out. And their footprint.
And
The footprint
I think
of your family is awesome.
Brother Sonny Whiteley celebrated 100, was it 100 years?
100 years at
And my
Horse Branch.
grandfather pastored there. Well, my grandmother, my dad's mother passed away. She was 36 when she passed away, and it was quite a few years even that they started the church or pastored the church at Horse Branch, Kentucky.
Brother Whiteley and I, we conversed some when he was getting ready to do his 100th celebration, and it's an amazing thing for churches to live to be 100. I mean, seriously,
Yes.
we see things happening. But I appreciate your ministry.
Thank you.
I met you for the first time. I'd heard about you, but I met you when you worked in the state office.
Yes.
And I walked in there one day, and this beautiful smiling face behind the desk there, and you always made me welcome. And then we seen each other every camp meeting. We always talked.
Yes.
And your sister Helen been with you and everything, And that was, if our reunions down here are good, how good's heaven going to be?
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
it's going to be precious. So thank you for being right.
Thank
She
you.
will be with us Sunday morning in our 10:30 service. I'm assuring you that the accordion will be here too, okay?
Yes, it
because
will.
I know that she's just going to have her liberty to do what she wants to do that morning, and I'll try, David, not to say as much that morning, and we will do that. But thank you for watching a live stream tonight. I love you. Sister Francis, I think I can speak for her. She loves Somerset.
I do.
She
I
loves
love
Somerset. Yeah.
Yes, I do.
We all I had to do was just say the word, and
That's
whatever
right.
we was doing, her and Sister Carter was on their way up
That's
here.
right.
And I remember, and I'll say this now, I'm going to hush now, but I'll say this. I remember we pitched the tent out here in
Yes.
2000, and we hadn't done anything here. We pitched the tent, and remember they were saying, like somebody stepped on use your accordion case for a step and put a hole in it. But we were out there in the tent, and I remember I told you, I said, now, you don't have to stay here. It was hot. I said, you can go back to your motel room anytime you want to. I said, she said, no, Mom, don't want to leave. and she stayed just about
That's
as
right,
long
you
as she
did.
could. And she would come and sit right where you sat. That's where she would sit here when she was able to come to our services here. And so you all are just dear to my heart as an individual.
Well, we love Somerset.
But the people of Somerset and the people of Kentucky, the people of the Church of God, appreciate the legacy of the Carden family. So thank you for being with us. We love you. You want to say anything else before we close?
No,
You're
I'll
good?
look forward to seeing everybody
All right.
Sunday morning.
That'll be 10:30 Sunday morning. We'll be going live at 10:30. Doors will open at 10 o'clock. Remember, we do all the COVID testing, restriction, temperatures will be took, and just thinking about your health as much as anything else. God bless you. We love you. See you then.